know, Sai has just said it all there. I feel exactly the same, but I feel it's been so much in the news this week that we have to discuss it and have to talk about it and give our opinion on the whole mess I described it as earlier at heavyweight. Like,
You could
how
chop this
hard
to
is
another
it?
podcast. Yeah,
How hard is it to get a fight sorted or even called or like purse bids or whatever whatever else has gone on? Like,
I
it
know.
just I saw an interview and different clips and stuff with I think it was Tyson Fury. There was one today, and one of the comments underneath just hit the nail on the head, like saying, "Just bored of it all." Like there's two potentially more fights that I thought were almost set in stone. Like you've got a contract with a rematch clause there for Joshua to fight Usyk again. I thought that was just done and dusted. It was agreed. It was happening. Like it was a chance for AJ to get his belts back or get revenge and like avenge that loss and pick up the belts at the same time. And then like Fury in the meantime was going to be kept busy with Dillian Whyte as his mandatory, which in terms of some of the mandatories we've seen over the years, Dillian Whyte being called as a mandatory challenger is brilliant. Like you look at some of Kell Brook's defenses, for example, with the IBF, and like there's countless examples of mandatories who you think in questioning how they've even got in the top 15. Never mind position to fight for a world title. Then you've got Dillian Whyte. Whatever you think of him, he's a top 10 heavyweight, no doubt. I
Mm.
would put him 4 or 5 in the division easily. Like is right up there, and suddenly you've got now, say, if Wilder is out of the picture, you've got potentially the top 4 in the division paired off in what should act as a semi-final to then deliver the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. Like, that is a perfect dream scenario for
No,
boxing
no.
fans, promoters, the boxers themselves. Like everyone should be just like, right, this is happening. This is what we're getting excited about, and yet boxing being as it is, we're still sat talking, and we're going to obviously go on about. I'll give you a word in a minute, but like we're
Thank you.
still sat talking about whether these fights are even going to happen.
No, I know, and I noticed why. First of all, why have his? I guess both sides blame the other, but why have these step aside talks broken down? Like, what has happened today? All I've seen today is Eddie Hearn basically people slagging him on Twitter and just saying he's telling lies, he's saying this, he's saying that, and then I've seen a clip of him with IFL saying that Dillian White's going to knock Fury out, and it's like, oh my god, like he just looked raging about.
Yeah, like
I don't
any other
know.
day, innit? If people on Twitter slagging any head off, but like I think it depends how far you obviously want to go back. I mean, if we look at like with Usyk and Joshua, obviously Usyk beat Joshua. There's a rematch clause in there, which some people were sort of debating whether that was the case or whether that was happening because Usyk himself was mandatory for the WBO title. But I believe because there were other belts on the line that Joshua held, they were able to negotiate a rematch clause into it. So
Yeah,
obviously, if Joshua lost, which he did, he'd get that immediate chance of revenge. And you think, okay, fair enough. That is a bit of a delay. Like as a fan, I would like to see Usyk fight Fury because it just decides the division. You've got a de facto number one fighter there, like someone set in stuff that person is the heavyweight champion of the world, which obviously we haven't really had since like I know Klitschko had most of the belts, Joshua's had most of the belts, but I believe it's like Lennox Lewis going back to like someone who had all of the belts
yeah,
at
yeah.
that time, all the major ones anyway, whatever constitutes a major title these days. Like so then you're right, okay, that's happening at some point, and I don't know the exact timeline, Dillian Whyte has been called as the mandatory. The WBC are going to decide on the purse split for that. That was then called as 80% Fury, 20% to White, which isn't necessarily unheard of, but is outside of their sort of normal remit, normal rules. So I can see a little bit of why White's a bit pissed off with the split, but also understand why you'd think, well, just take your chance. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to get millions for it anyway, and the potential to like upset the world and win that world title and fight for a world title, which he's obviously been calling for
Well, that's it. Maybe
about
he's
10 years,
finally,
hasn't he?
yeah.
Since
Maybe
we've always
he's,
started boxing.
yeah. Maybe he's finally going to get this shot that he says he wants. And I'm just reading here, both sides blaming each other. Hearns came out and said, ultimately, it's Tyson Fury who doesn't want to fight Usyk next in an undisputed fight. He wants to have an intimate fight in March. As we stand right here and now, Dillian Whyte against Tyson Fury will go to purse bids tomorrow, Friday, in Mexico City. Fury's co-promoter Frank Warren has described Hearn's version of events as rubbish, and insisting Fury is not the reason the fight was not going ahead. Deal is dead. We move on. Warren told to the purse bits. Warren told BT Sport. So it's he said, she said. Who's, you know what I mean?
I think it's hard as like obviously a fan on the complete outside of it all. Like if Joshua has been offered this step aside money, which was reported, I think it was Sunday, late Sunday night, and sort of early Monday, the story rumbled on from Gareth A. Davis, and there wasn't necessarily any concrete quotes or anything in that, but Joshua himself come out and sort of dismissed that like it hadn't happened. He wasn't totally adverse to accepting the step aside money, just sort of clearing up the fact that he hadn't accepted anything. There wasn't a contract presented to him or anything like that. So with that like in mind, like then obviously Fury fighting Usyk is completely irrelevant until Joshua actually agrees not to pursue this rematch clause. Like he could forfeit that, I suppose. It's on his side of things, the rematch. Like he doesn't necessarily have to pursue that and go through with it. Usyk, I feel sorry for a little bit, and again, this is just from what's sort of publicly available. He's in a bit of no man's land. Whether Joshua's going to follow through and fight him, and that's the fight he's going to have and prepare for, or where is this whole step aside thing come from? Like Usyk, Joshua 2, Fury against Whyte, not the single fight that you want, but two very, very sort of good replacements that could build up to that super undisputed unification. I don't understand how Fury can be accused of avoiding Usyk in that sense if Joshua hasn't accepted the step aside money. Like, if they're still contractually obliged to be fighting each other, it's got fuck all to do with Fury. Whereas then whether Fury wants to fight Dillian Whyte or not, there's talk of him, like, not necessarily officially, but a lot of rumours about, he might just vacate if he doesn't want to fight Whyte, he's not going to. Like, all of these boxers, especially Fury and AJ, hold the cards. They are the ones in the position. So obviously, if you're then representing them, like Hearn and Warren are, and Top Rank with Bob Arum as well on Fury's side, like they can make those moves. Like Fury could vacate his title and still probably be considered the best fighter in the world, the best heavyweight in the world. Like that doesn't necessarily change what has gone on in the ring to date. Changes people's ideas of him and maybe questions over, what he wants from the sport. But then again, it's that thing like obviously Hearn's got two. I know he has some dealings with Usyk, but Matchroom have sort of options on him. Not, I wouldn't say officially promoter or manager or anything, but Whyte and AJ both represented by Matchroom, by Hearn working closely with them. He's got a couple of pieces to move around, and it's interesting, like to sort of see exactly how he does that and what's the best option for like all parties, because we can sit here and weigh up the pros and cons of step aside money anyway. I mean, getting paid 15 million quid or a rumored 15 million, not to do anything, like not to fight, is a no-brainer for 99% of the population. Like, you get paid not to do your job, you're going to take that. But obviously, there's other factors at play. There's like the pride and the ego of Joshua. Like, does he believe that he's going to beat Usyk in this rematch? Is that the one he wants above anything else? Or is he happy to sit it out, and then if Fury beats Usyk, he goes and challenges Fury? Or if Usyk beats Fury, then gets the rematch on? There's like, it's almost that longer term game. And talk about boxing as being like a chess match, but this is like outside of the ring. They're moving the pieces around and trying to work out where the land's going to lie.
It's mental. Like I tweeted the other day about it, saying it's such a bureaucratic sport at times of a load of hypotheticals, and sometimes you can just switch off from it and zone out. And that is probably for me the most frustrating part of boxing. I think is I've never been like a purse bid's head or a TV rights or anything like that. Or the new one is now arbitration. That word's been, I'm sick of that word anyway from the Newcastle takeover. But now it's found its way into boxing. Arbitration's the new one, and step aside fees, and it's just like, and I know it's I don't want to say I'm old school. I'm not from the freaking 70s or 80s. I like a date, I like a poster, I like a TV channel, and let me go. Do you know what I mean? And I just think what will be. And Fury came out today and who said, who else can't wait for the fight, the best of Britain, and he's tagged in Dillian Whyte, WBC.
Yeah, I'd seen something about him saying
is that just him? Is that just him going, hey, fuck you? I don't know. But I don't even hate Fury and Whyte, and I don't hate the Joshua Usyk rematch. I get there could be a sporting argument, not a financial one, to think, right, come on, Joshua, a real fighting man, go and avenge your loss. You know what I mean? There is that. I've seen Simon Jordan and Adam Catterall, and I'm not going to replay that now with you, but there's so many sides of this fucking never-ending coin, and it's just hopefully from this, it might not be the outcome. Boxing needs undisputed fights. Maybe today's outcome's not the one most people wanted, but if it just brings some closure to this sorry saga, and we get closer to announcing 2 different fights, at least it's the end of it. At least we've got something to focus on. Try and hopefully treat it as some sort of Super Series semi-finals, the 2 of them, and just fucking make the winners fight each other. You know what I mean?
That's exactly it. I'll never defend fights not getting made because, above everything, regardless, we don't have any financial interest in the sport at all. But even if we did, I don't think I could back that up and defend it. But I totally understand why it's on the cards. And again, the undisputed fight, it's almost counterintuitive because I spend my time saying, oh well, the belts don't actually mean that much nowadays because you can have world champions, even unified champions, and you think, well, they're not necessarily the best in the division. It's such a backwards sport in that regard. But to have a heavyweight champion holding all 4 of those titles just eliminates so much of the toing and froing and everything that goes around, all the arguments and the opinions that go around. And yes, they do sometimes make the sport more entertaining, but it just, as closure is the word, isn't it? It just puts that sort of nail in the coffin of it, and right, this is this, whoever it is the man. Obviously Usyk done it at cruiserweight with the aid of the Super Series, and left no doubt in anyone's mind that he was the champion at that division. He was the man at £200. And as much as I'm saying it, I think in terms of entertainment and fights I'd actually want to see if there were no such thing as belts, Usyk and Fury is probably going to be the least action-packed out of all the sort of combinations you could make with them. As you say, Usyk-Joshua wasn't wall-to-wall action, but it was competitive enough. It was a decent watch. I think Dillian Whyte, for all his flaws, is an entertaining fight. He puts it on the line. He'll come forward, and again, he's been stopped before. He's obviously stopped lots of guys. He's got that little X factor in that regard that you do want to tune in and see what happens. Whether you're willing to pay for it or not is a different matter. But you've got a bit of intrigue around him, and I think him against Fury would be a fairly one-sided fight. I think
Me too.
Whyte has shown over the past, over his 2 fights with Chisora, for example, that he's a very similar level, but also quite a similar style to him. Their styles meshed really well and created 2 good, entertaining fights. But Fury absolutely schooled Chisora. So I think in 2022, it's more of the same of that, and I think it'll be a comprehensive win for Fury. Joshua and Usyk, I did pick Usyk the first time, so obviously I'm going to lean towards him the second time, and it's hard to talk about it without saying, well, it's going to be Usyk and Fury, but the upsets could happen. It could be Joshua. Part of me wants, as much as I like Usyk as a boxer, part of me would love that Joshua to get that revenge and then fight Fury, but it's all about if that happens, if that guarantee happens. These could be their first fights of the year, and then they kick on, and obviously the winners face each other, as you say, as a little semi-final eliminator, but it's really that straightforward, and I've got no faith whatsoever that's going to happen. I mean, I remember last year when they'd announced, hadn't they, they'd signed, there's a date, Fury and Joshua have agreed to fight each other, it's happening. And I remember getting into so many people hammering me online, about the fact I was being negative, and it was just I don't believe it's going to happen until, as you say, there's a poster, there's a date, there's a venue. They've agreed to fight each other, but they need to sort out how much each other's getting paid. They need to find out when it's going to take place. They need to find out where it's happening. It's it's not happening.
What channel it's on?
It's not done. And again, as I say, we've even got contracts stating that these fights have to happen. I nearly fell off my stool there. And then they're not happening. It's what more can anyone do to pin down these fights?
That's another thing. Like I said before, it's boxing at times and is a very, very hypothetical sport, and the heavyweight division seems to have more hypotheticals around it than any other one at this point. And it can drive you mad. And I think this is what's refreshing about coming on here talking Eubank Williams or whatever DAZN scheduler, because you know that is happening, and we can talk about these actual fights, and the hypothetical nature of the sport can drive you mad. And that was another one you reminded us of last year, all the push notifications from Sky on the phone and stuff, and site visits was another fucking term I hated last year. Site visits in Saudi and this and that, and I was like, oh man, no one cares. Like, well, I don't anyway. Some people must, but
no,
just
you don't care,
just
but then you still click, don't you? Like it is that clickbait thing. It's the culture we live in of you're interested, you want to believe that it's been made, so you read it, and then you're disappointed with yourself for bothering to click it and read more of nothing.
Hopefully, by the time we speak next week, we'll have even more sort of clarity on the situation and see how these purse bids go on Friday and stuff. But we'll, we've got to talk about it. It's big news, you know what I mean? It's just, fingers crossed, we just get some date and something to get stuck into, you know, and instead of just talking about it again. And, another month's gone by, January's now basically done, and the water's still muddy, and I don't know.
I think as we get into February and definitely March, it's going to be a lot easier to avoid talking about the talk. There's obviously a fair bit of actual boxing coming up, and I know that's a bit of a novelty. A boxing website wanting to actually talk about the boxing and what's happening in the ring.
There's loads.
It'll be a lot easier for us to do that, and hopefully we'll get into our swing of things and build a bit of momentum.
Yeah, I think February and March, in particular, seem to be absolutely going to be crackers. I think there's more announcement to come, and it's just going to be a bit mad, I think. What else is going on? You were at the Job's boxing press conference last week?
I was indeed. Yeah, very, very slick operation. Big shout out to Danny and Matt there for hosting, and obviously all the boxers and everyone behind the scenes. Honestly, it was at the gym. It was a photo shoot going on. There was various media outlets. I'm probably going to forget some, but Sporting Icons were there. It was good to see lads from Peak Magazine. I think it was Northern Sports Marketing. I apologise if I get that wrong. Someone we interact with on Twitter. There's a good few sort of representatives of Northeast boxing and the boxing media up here as well. So it's always nice to catch up with everyone and have a bit of chat. But really well run. They had sort of 3 or 4 different stations around the gym for us to set up. I was lucky enough to get my camera in the actual ring. Had the backdrop of a few photos. Got to speak to a few now. Obviously a few of the Jobs lads and lasses, but also Adam Gare was there. Jordan Barker Porter was there. Good to catch up with her. There's again really good mix, and I think it's brilliant that we obviously bang the drum about Northeast boxing, but I think a lot of those prospects they might not even it sounds horrible. They might not even get 10 fights as a pro. We've seen it before with people falling away from the sport, falling out of love, life gets in the way, all the rest of it. But they're getting that little sample of the sort of media and
the big time
training, practice, just enjoying and that side of it. And I mean, some of them might not want that side of it. They might just want to concentrate on the boxing. But everyone, to a man and a woman, they were absolutely spot on. Obviously towards the end of it, being there a few hours, getting a couple of people after they'd done a few other interviews, but some really good chat. And they'll be dropping sort of throughout hopefully over the weekend and throughout the next couple of weeks there ahead of their show on February 26th was the one that most of them are going to be featuring on. So hopefully another decent Northeast card. Some interesting matchups discussed off camera, put it that way.
Good man, good stuff. From my point of view, I've got a lunchtime podcast interview, Zoom chat with Thomas Hodgson tomorrow. Looking forward to speaking to him. Been meaning to do for ages, and just messaged him this week and thought, let's get this over the line. Very talented boxer, former Berkeley boxer for a bit, turned pro last year with Dennis Hobson. He's now 3-0. I call him the hidden gem of Northeast boxing. I think extremely talented, and looking forward to seeing how he does in the pros. Another one of those talented amateurs that's turned over. Maybe with not as much fanfare as the others, but again, very talented lad. So looking forward to having a chat with him, and that'll probably be up at some point over the weekend.
That could help him, to be honest, as well, though, couldn't it? As you say, he's sort of going not off the radar necessarily, but not as much fanfare maybe as the likes of the McCormack twins and some of the lads that have signed with Matchroom, and he's gone about his business very well so far, and I'm dying to see just how far he can go.
Expecting a big announcement tomorrow about a Northeast show towards the end of March as well. So eyes peeled for that one. I believe it's coming tomorrow. So exciting times again up here. Plenty to get stuck into in the next few weeks and months.
Yeah, I think we'll call that a day. But just before
Right,
we
nice,
do,
55 minutes.
on our little graphic there, you can see we've got a few little icons, encouraging people to hit that bell on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, we've got the like, we've got share button. Please get retweeting. We've put this out directly on Twitter as well. Hopefully, if that has worked, and obviously give us a like and tell your friends, spread word of mouth in it. But I think what we'd also say, we always like gush and thank people in that, don't we? But like it is it's nice to hear from everyone, and like there's nothing better. I think it's took us a while, hasn't it, to do these live videos and actually sort of pluck up the courage to do it and put ourselves out there a bit. But we're hoping to keep building it and get as many views as possible. But like drop us feedback, like whether drop in the DMs or give us a comment underneath this on YouTube or Twitter or however you're watching or listening, and like let us know. We're obviously learning ourselves. We're trying to get bigger and better all the time, and like we genuinely do appreciate the feedback and the chat from boxing fans. It's mainly the main reason we do it.
No, we do. What else? Again, no, just echo what you said. Your audios on all the big channels, your Spotify, SoundClouds, Apple. If you want to listen on your commute to work, anything like that, just us two rabbiting on for now, then go for it. We will keep doing them regularly. We've got a competition at little giveaway, Ricky Hatton program on the pin tweet of our Twitter as well at the minute. So get involved with that.
Yeah, you'll see on there, it's hinting at a return for round for pound. We're hoping to get this up and running over the weekend, early next week at the very latest. We'll have that all up and running. All information will be on our socials and the website as well. Those of you that obviously know about it, hopefully you'll come back, and those that don't, hopefully you will be introduced to it very, very soon.
Nice one, cracking. Enjoyed it. Williams points.
It's not going to happen. Not going to happen.
Let's go.
I've stopped streaming there. That's fine.
No.
On to the lightweight representative from Team GB 2016 Rio Olympics. Lightweight as a professional initially, he's since made the bizarre change. He actually picked up the British title as a lightweight, some very good domestic wins, beating the likes of Andy Townend, Gavin Gwynn at lightweight, and they're not to be sniffed at. Again, if you're a young, decent prospect, and I want to reiterate this because I feel that when it's Matchroom in particular, when they sign an Olympian, there's a lot of hype and a lot of promotional push behind them, that people expect them all to be on this sort of Lomachenko trajectory of a couple of fights, 5 fights, get him for a British title, 10 fights European, and beyond that, the world honours by the time they've had, like Cordina has, 14 fights or so. And it's unrealistic. It's not necessarily fair. So for someone, again, with just 14 fights, obviously he had fewer than that when he won the British title, it's a hell of an achievement. He's done exceptionally well to get that point of view. And I think a lot of fans see the British as a sort of minimum for these guys. And I mentioned that earlier in this piece. I understand that because they're, in theory, amongst the best amateurs in the world, so they should be getting in for world titles, but that's not necessarily always going to be the case. And I feel really hard to criticise Cordina for only having won that British title so far. This is, again, someone who's not had that many fights as a professional. He's come back, as I said, winning the lightweight title, and then in his very next outing made that decision to drop down to super feather. So we've talked already, or I've talked about Kelly, Fowler. They've lost and then made the decision to go up in weight. That seems to be a very common thing in boxing. They're looking for any sort of, not excuse, but any reason or any factor that might have contributed to the loss rather than being beaten by the better man. It's very hard for boxers to just admit that and move on. There has to be this inquest. There has to be digging into what exactly has gone wrong. What can I do to tweak my performance and to improve myself the next time out? So for Cordina to come off winning the British title and then sit down with his team and think, actually, I'm going to be even better at a lower weight, it's an interesting development. And again, he's fought, obviously he's beaten everyone he's boxed. So to then go down to super feather and continue that momentum. He's one who I think suffered a little with the pandemic and issues outside the ring, not been as active since, but come back recently towards the end of last year, and I think the Conor Benn undercard picked up another win. These sort of international level fights, they're really hard to judge because unless you're an encyclopedic knowledge or encyclopedic expert of boxing, I'm not going to sit here and pretend I know a lot about his recent opponents. But he's picked up the wins. He's doing what needs to be done, and I think coming into 2022, he's going to want to be active. He's going to want to get out as often as possible, and hopefully make that progression. I think a European title shot is going to be something that is in the works for Joe Cordina, something that we'll look to see him working towards world level, whether it's actually sort of boxing for the European title or going down one of the sanctioning body routes, something more directly, following on from some of these international fights that he's had, these international titles he's picked up, and positioning himself at world level. But again, one fighter who's done nothing wrong so far, and it feels very, very critical and nitpicking to sort of pick him up on the lack of momentum he's had and the lack of activity he's had, because when he's been in the ring, he has done the business so far. And with that, I am going to grant Joe Cordina a B.